TV tonight, broadcast of the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series for the Holl Sheetmetal 150 in wine country. We're at Sonoma Raceway for the second road course event of the season. I'm Peter Short, and joining me in the booth here tonight is Andre Graham-Bush. And Andre, we're going to be twisting our way left and right here tonight on one of the trickiest road courses that you will ever see here on 3 Wide TV. Tell us about it.
There are a lot of interesting places on this track here, Peter. First of all, the new carousel, which I call it new, but it's really only new to NASCAR. It's a very sharp left-hander that's incredibly downhill. The car gets very weightless as you navigate that turn, so it can be very easy to get a little bit loose spin out there. And then, of course, you got the winding backstretch where you're kind of in a constant chicane, left, right, and then into that deep hairpin. There is so many opportunities for passing here. It's just going to be a fantastic show, and it's going to be what I believe to be one of the first timed events of the season. So that's an interesting thing to note. We're used to seeing a lap counter, but no, 75 minutes around this circuit tonight. It's going to be quite a show.
Yeah, of course, the only other timed event so far this season was at the Circuit of Americas. That race was won by Scott Eckrich. Eckrich really walked away with that race at the Circuit of the Americas just a couple of weeks ago. Started on the pole and ended up going to victory lane. Scott Eckrich's run, however, of 5 consecutive poles here in the American Sim Racing Series could be coming to an end here tonight, because I'll tell you what, that number 70 machine appears to not be out there right now. Not sure where Eckrich is tonight. Maybe we'll get to see him in the chat here on 3 Wide TV, but I have to say that here tonight it is going to be very interesting to see who will walk away with the victory, and it is last season's race winner, driver of the number 10 machine, Nick Curling, who is currently atop the leaderboard with last year's runner-up here at Sonoma, Greg Evans, second fastest here in practice. So definitely going to be interesting to see whether or not they can repeat their finish 1-2 last season here in tonight's Holl Sheetmetal 150. Big shout out to Holl Sheetmetal for jumping on board and sponsoring this race here tonight, Andre. But I'm very excited to see what this race has in store, as well as what stories this race will give us here in the point standings. You see checkered flag being waved here on the practice session. We're about to go into the Midwest Simulations pole shootout. We'll get a look at the point standings here in just a little minute. But I'll tell you what, Andre, I think it's going to be important for these drivers to lay down a good lap here in this qualifying session.
Oh, it's definitely going to be important. Qualifying well always helps, but one thing that's really going to be important, I think, is just being consistent all throughout the night. You know, starting up front, that's great, but let's go ahead and take a look at our championship standings here, Peter. Greg Evans still in the points lead with 601 points. And just a short trip back, it's going to be Tyler Seville for Will Worsler Racing. Will Worsler Racing coming off of some fantastic performances lately, closing that gap in the points. Scott Eckrich third, Corey Silva fourth, Brian Yazik, I believe he moved up to fifth after last week. He actually gained some positions with that great run he had. Will Worsler sixth, Thomas George seventh, Adam Dursky eighth in points, Jeff Yenish ninth, and 10th, running out in top 10 is going to be Jordan Harnish. Take 10th on back there, Peter.
Yeah, AJ Digby right there coming into the point standings tonight in 11th. We know he is very good at road courses, so keep our eyes on him here tonight. Michael Krobach, Johnny Avila right there, Steve Yenish in 14th, Jason Stewart 15th, Doug Mullins, who finished third in this race one season ago. He will be starting in the 16th spot. Grant Brown, Alan Young in 18th, Troy Haight, and Nick Curling. We know Curling knows his way around this racetrack. He is the reigning race winner here of the Holl Sheetmetal 150. And then you look a little bit further back, these drivers trying to get their way into the top 20 in points. Of course, the top 20 guarantees you a starting spot in the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. So John Eckhart there, Jackson Van Valkenburg, Woody Mahan, and Tim Knott all trying to claw themselves up into the top 20 in points. And you see the points really trickle on down as you look to the back half here of the top 38. Cars just now rounding their way into the final corner here, turn number 11, this hairpin. We're going to see a lot of cars here making some moves. One of the best passing points on this entire racetrack there Going to be a lot of fun, as you saw Pete Bastins have a little bit of wheel spin. That's something these drivers are going to have to watch out for all night long, Andre, as the tires wear. Of course, they don't have to worry about that all too much here in the Midwest Simulations whole qualifying session, but in the race, tire management extremely important.
Oh yeah, they're going to be doing a lot of sliding on this track, so the tires can easily get scuffed up a little bit quicker than you might be expecting, especially with the warm temperatures out here at Sonoma. So um, that is going to be very important. It kind of goes back into what I was talking about with consistency. As Greg Evans decides to park the car there, he's going to go back to the pit entrance and try again here. That's kind of interesting as we take over 51. But at road courses, it is all about consistency. I think we're going to see a lot of drivers make little mistakes, little bobbles here and there, and it's only natural. We're driving cars that weigh 5,000 pounds and that have tires that are way too narrow for the actual design of the car. So very little grip, and when you combine that with all the elevation changes and odd angles these turns are going to take these cars around, it is only natural that even some of the best drivers on the service are going to make some mistakes here and again. So if you're somebody who can avoid those mistakes and capitalize on the mistakes of others, that's what's going to get you up front. So you might not need to be the fastest. And I think tonight, like you said, Peter, with how important tires are, I think the play is going to be taking it easy, not pushing the car, not trying to pass everybody under green or just through raw speed, but just kind of waiting it out to a little bit closer till the end and just seeing how tire wear and fuel mileage shake out.
Yeah, you said it very, very well. Just take it easy. Sometimes slow is fast. It doesn't sound like it, but here, like you said, lumbering all that way through the yeses, up through turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, that whole section, you just have to try and keep all 4 tires underneath you. You've seen a couple of drivers struggle here in the practice session. We saw Evan Black in the number 92 have some problems out of turn number 10, but it is currently Nick Curling. He backed up his practice time, ran a 138.47 in practice, and here in qualifying running a 138.41. Very, very quick out of driver of the number 10 machine, and he is currently on the provisional pole. But as you can see, a bunch of cars still out there working their way around this circuit. Here you get a look of the carousel. That is the number 3 there, Michael Larch, working his way around that portion of the racetrack. Now, kind of down this backstretch, it kind of leads onto the drag strip here, Andre, which is always a bit of an interesting look here, looking straight down that drag strip and seeing some race cars out there.
Yeah, it's an interesting layout, and I think NASCAR deciding to change their layout after so many years of running the shorter circuit really surprised a lot of people. But I think it was a change for the better. Some people were kind of skeptical. They felt like they were removing an overtake possibility with that sharp right-hander that we're now kind of avoiding. But for the 2 turns that we gave up, we got 3 incredible overtaking positions. So it's going to be interesting. And like you said, that drag strip, having these cars come the wrong way down the drag strip, is beginning having a little bit of an issue there. Speaking of the drag strip, it's an interesting thing, and you can see where the rubber is getting laid down and how they're kind of arcing their way on and off of it. And I would think the grip level's got to be a little bit different. I mean, the other parts of the circuit have been used and ran in by other series and other layouts, but that drag strip maybe not used as much, maybe a little bit less rubber laid down on it. So kind of an interesting dynamic they got to deal with as they kind of round their way out of that downhill carousel onto the drag strip and then all the way back to that hard right-hander. It's kind of a double turn. It seems like one single turn, but the way that you angle the car through there, you're almost taking 2 turns in one right after that drag strip. So very tough to navigate. But I want to point out right now, second in the standings for qualifying, Johnny Avila. He actually matched the number 2's time from practice. So he ran a 138.6. So right now, one of only 2 drivers to break into the 138 area. And Avila, you can't count him out. He has been really consistent this season. It seems like every time I'm up here broadcasting and we're just keeping an eye on the front of the field, he's always up there in the top 5, always up there in the top 3, and he is looking to get a win. And it could come here tonight. We've seen road courses sometimes shake up the running order. Some drivers consider themselves to be road course specialists, but with how important road courses have been, a lot of the drivers that, maybe may have discounted road courses and never put that much time in, now they're starting to take them a little bit serious. So you got drivers like Greg Evans, Nick Curling, and Johnny Avila who are great on the ovals, now putting in the time, putting in the effort to become great on the road courses as well, and it's showing through qualifying.
Yeah, that it is for sure. Great qualifying run out of that number 63 here tonight. There's number 69, the Beef Jerski's Cheesecake Emporium machine, driven by Adam Jersky. He's out there, I think, just getting a few extra practice laps in. I think he's already put in both of his times. On the bottom left there is the number 17 of Kevin Stone. You see him right now in the 22nd position, right there at the center of the screen. The Famucci Ware machine last week picked up the award for the best looking patriotic scheme for Memorial Day. That was a great looking ride there. The Famucci Ware number 17 works his way out of the final corner, coming to the start finish line here. The Will Worcester, he's put in a couple of his best sectors here. Can he jump up the board? Currently 14th on the board. This lap's going to come on through. And it looks like Will Worcester will not gain any positions, staying down in the 14th spot here as his 2 qualifying lap times have come to a close. Pretty much every driver out there on the racetrack right now, by my lifetime scoring, is out there just trying to get some practice laps in. 3 drivers not able to take time: Mark Myers, Richard Fletcher, and Alan Young. So those 3 drivers, I believe, will have to start at the tail end of the field. 31 cars here for the Holl Sheetmetal 150 here tonight at Sonoma Raceway. It's going to be fun to see that graphic in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen as the field really starts to stretch out here in the timed event. And you did mention it, Andre, that, you know, kind of keeping it easy, keeping the car on the racetrack is going to be important. What's going to be really important here tonight? 75 minutes. It's an endurance race. Minimize those mistakes. There's not going to be any caution flags unless there's a giant pileup that would bring out a yellow. But more than likely, only local yellows tonight. So you're going to have to hit your marks lap after lap after lap. And oof, Steve Yenish there in number 23 machine might have hit his marks a little bit too much, getting over those curves that you can see down through the S's, launching that car into the end and losing control of it. Those are the types of mistakes you have to minimize.
That's the dangerous game you play. You have to use those curbs in some form or fashion. You have to get up on the curb, hit the apex, and really drive aggressively. But at the same time, if you hit those curbs at the wrong angle, hit them a little bit too hard, they will pull your car around, and it can be really hard to recover from that. Once the car starts getting away from you and that weight shifts around, and in that case right there was a tire barrier just right there waiting to strike. So they're going to have to really take it easy and know exactly where the limits are on these curbs, and honestly which curbs to use and which ones not to. You know, sometimes you could be faster hitting the curb, but it's such a big risk and it's so difficult to do that you might just be better off sacrificing a tenth or two and just staying on the racing surface, playing it safe, playing it smart. But yeah, like you said, pretty much everybody has posted their time. Everybody just kind of getting their crucial practice in, as I think that is, of course, going to be very important going into a road course like tonight, especially Sonoma. But you talked about how it's going to be an endurance event and how the yellow flags are only really going to come out if we wind up getting a huge wreck, and that's another reason that consistency is going to be important. We're not going to be doing full course cautions for single car incidents, or maybe even 2 or 3 cars that go off track separately. But we do have our grid set, and it looks like Nick Curling is going to take our pole award right there with a 1:38.413. Johnny Avila right behind him in second, 1:38.664, so 2/10 between the top 2. Looking back 1/10, you got Greg Evans, the third and final driver to crack into the 1:38s. Doug Mullins in 4th. Adam Jersky climbing all the way up to the top 5 with his qualifying effort. Michael Krobach in P6. Steve Yanish P7. Tyler Seville 8th. Corey Silva 9th. And running at your top 10 is going to be Jordan Harnish.
AJ Digby, the number 14 machine, will be rolling off from the inside of row number 6. Alongside him is going to be Grant Brown in the 00. Woody Mahan, Will Worcester on row number 7. Brian Yazik, Jackson Van Volkenberg 15th and 16th. Thomas George, Mark Cohn 17th and 18th. Troy Haight, Evan Black 19th and 20th. And just to kind of take you through the rest of your field, Michael Larch, Kevin Stone right there on your screen on row number 11. Behind them, you see the number 13, Gary Reynolds Jr. and Jason Stewart, 23rd, 24th. John Eckhart and Pete Baskins, 25th and 26th. Adam Blattel back to the Premier Series here tonight. The number 7 will be starting alongside Jeff Yenish, while Alan Young, Mark Myers, and Richard Fletcher round out the 31 cars that you'll see in action here tonight at the Sonoma Raceway. Big shout out to Midwest Simulations for sponsoring the pole award. Make sure you check them out at midwestsim.com. Their spotlights are a treat of a product. If you are an iRacer and you want to pick up something that gives you a little bit more spatial awareness out there on the racetrack, especially if you're doing dirt cars, make sure you pick up those spotlights. They can be very, very handy. But you see all the cars heading up towards turn number 1. Nick Curling, last season's race winner here, going to be starting from the Midwest Simulations pole. Johnny Avila alongside him. Row number 2, of course, you mentioned Andre, Greg Evans, Doug Mullins. Those drivers finished 2nd and 3rd last season here at Sonoma. So your top 3 all starting with your top 3 from last season, all starting within the top 4 here tonight. Of course, the big notable driver missing here tonight is Scott Eckrich. We're trying to go for 6 consecutive poles here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. That streak will end here tonight. But definitely going to be an interesting one here around Sonoma. I'm very much looking forward to it and seeing all these drivers hustle the curbs here tonight.
Absolutely. It's going to be a hustle for sure. And one thing I want to point out, too, is with this 31-car field, there's going to be a lot of lap traffic throughout this race. And that's the thing about road courses. Everybody runs them at such a drastically different pace. And you go to an oval, and from the fastest driver in the field to the slowest, the difference might only be a few tenths. But here at a road course, the difference could be up into the seconds. So a lot of traffic they're going to have to navigate, I'm sure, with this bigger field. And it can be difficult at a track like Sonoma. There's a lot of overtaking possibilities. But when you're a driver who might be going a lap down, you're in position for a lucky dog, or you want to try to stay on the lead lap and you're battling for it, things can get pretty risky. So it's going to be fun to watch that. And you got to think right now, Peter, these drivers' nerves are starting to get a little bit frazzled, because this is one long pace lap all around the track, and they're just waiting and chomping at the bit to finally get this thing underway.
Yeah, you mentioned that the lap time disparity in the field can be a lot greater at a road course. Well, usually we're only talking about a few tenths between first and last in the field. Here tonight, 14 seconds between the fastest qualifier and the slowest qualifier. Now, I'm sure someone was probably taking a little bit easy, but 14 seconds is rather drastic. They worked their way out of the hairpin, waiting to see the green flag. It is in the flagman's hand, and it is the number 10 machine of Nick Curling up at the front of the field. He is trying to go back-to-back here at Sonoma. They're on the loud pedal. Big wiggle out the back of a couple of your leaders. Nick Curling had a bobble. The 63 of Avila had a bobble, but the 2 of Evans probably had the biggest bobble, but they all keep it clean. And look at the 63 of Avila, slung it off into turn number 2, but not quite able to get around the number 10 of Curling. Curling gonna lead going up into turn 3.
Coming up that hill, Curling actually rocked that high side all the way back around the second place car there. And that's a move that's difficult to do, but you can use it. There's a little bit of banking on that hill, and the outside is an option. As the number 2 has a big slide, that's going to cost him a position on the number 18. He was battling with him for 3rd, but it looks like that number 2 is fighting loose as they go side by side for the lead down through the carousel. The number 10 on the inside, which is the preferred lane for this corner. Here he comes onto the drag strip with Johnny Avila striking on the high side. The number 10 had a little bit of a wiggle there, and that's going to leave them side by side with Avila on the inside for the double right-hander. Can he make the move right onto the curb? He's clear now, but is the number 10 going to get a run? No, he actually falls back another position to the number 18, Doug Mullins. So a disastrous set of turns from 1st to 3rd. Nick Curling right after the drag strip.
And hearing that the number 29 machine of Will Warser has quite a bit of damage. He is towards the back of the pack. He is missing a front bumper. That number 29 high flow machine definitely severely damaged here, but it's been a great lap up the front for Johnny Avila and Doug Mullins. Avila went from 2nd to the lead, and Mullins goes from 4th up to 2nd in just a single lap here. And some great passing. Let's see if we can get a replay here of what happened at the start of the race. Going down through the carousel here. Oh, this is Mark Myers, and Myers has a lazy spin. I don't think that's the first or the last time we're going to see that here tonight at Sonoma.
No, that probably won't be the last. I'm impressed though that the tires had the grip to get up that kind of dirt embankment there and then back down onto the track. That was pretty impressive. But this battle for second place right now is really not dying down. Nick Curling had a couple of bad corners. He lost a little bit of pace to the number 18, Doug Mullins. But it seems like on this first sector of the track, he has that thing dialed in, especially going up that first hill after the start-finish line. That's where he closed in a lot. And now coming back through the section where he's a little bit slower the first lap, we're going to see, can he get the bumper of that 18? He dives it in deep. He's going to try to get there. And he does. He's on the curb, and there's contact. Nick Curling into the door of the 18. That's going to cost him another position as the number 2 sneaks by. And I'm not sure if the 18 got any damage from that. It doesn't look like it on my end, but man, it's a long race. Can't be beating these cars up too soon.
And that's exactly what Johnny Avila wants to be seeing. He is absolutely scooting away up at the front of the field right now, almost to a 1.5 second lead as they go into the hairpin for the second time here tonight. You can see that the clock in the top left corner of your screen is slowly ticking down here. It is a timed race here tonight, only the second ever timed event here in the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. Big shout out to everyone over at Hacksaw PCs. I know Nick is getting a little bit of a getaway. Really do appreciate him sponsoring the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. I am lucky enough to run a Hacksaw PC myself, and it is an absolute joy of a computer to have. Big shout out to them. Hopefully he enjoys his time off and time away out in Hawaii. He's probably not watching us here on 3Y TV, that's for sure. Enjoying the beaches, that is more likely. Meanwhile, here comes Evan Black getting to the inside of number 12. Oh, Evan Black, just like that, going off on an excursion, going mountain climbing here off in the dirt. You get some of those big hills, and luckily Evan's able to find himself back on the racetrack, but he's going to lose a couple of positions because of it. Again, probably not the last time we'll see that here tonight.
Not even close. And last time around, our producer did whisper in our ear there that so far the fastest lap that time was set by our current leader, Johnny Avila. So not only is he kind of playing the benefactor to these guys battling back here, I mean, he's definitely benefiting from these guys just rubbing each other and trying to get through these corners and pushing each other, but he's also just got raw speed. That car is absolutely dialed in right now, and I think, the number 10 gets big loose out of the hairpin. I think his qualifying effort was kind of a taking it easy situation. You know, he qualified well, and he was in the second position there, but even then, I think he was taking it easy because he is flying right now, setting lap times that are pretty much on par with qualifying times during the race. So Avila in that 63 is moving, and right now nobody really has anything for him. Last time around, he was a tenth faster than the second fastest car, Greg Evans, and he was a whole 5/10 faster than the second place car in the running order, Doug Mullins. So he is really moving, and so is that number 2. He is trying to get around the 18. This battle for second has really heated up ever since the 2 was able to get around Curling. And Curling not letting him really go either, but we're looking a little bit further back through the field there. That's the number 55, Ryan Yazik. He's working his way down the carousel, and he's kind of on the hunt himself. He is currently trying to overtake the number 14, AJ Digby. And interesting thing to note, 55's got a lot of rear end damage from my perspective at least. So not exactly sure how that happened, but this is a road course where aero is going to be kind of important. I mean, there's a lot of high-speed sections, especially that winding backstretch where you're on the accelerator, but you're still rotating the car, where you want the downforce to be just about as high as you can get it. And with that rear end crumpled up, he's going to be struggling.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of cars that I'm starting to see out there on the racetrack with some damage, and there is the number 89 there, Jeff Yenish. He has been struggling over the last lap and a half or so. Last time by through the S's, he got crossed up and went around. Number 17 of Kevin Stone has also had an off-track or two here over the last couple of laps of Famucci, where number 17 has slid down the running order here on 3Y TV. I believe that the 55, to kind of answer your question about where the 55 got that damage from, I believe he picked it up from the number 29 machine, Will Warford, who got into him kind of right at the top of the hill on the opening lap. But we'll see whether or not some of the damage that we're seeing out there. There you see the pretty heavily damaged number 29 of Will Warsler is still missing the front end on that machine. He goes for a little bit of a slide right there at the top of the hill this time. He's running down in the 18th position, qualified 14th, so he's lost 4 positions from the start of the race. We'll see whether or not he can climb his way back up closer to the top 10. Now, speaking of the top 10, biggest mover inside the top 10 is the 00 machine of Grant Brown. He's picked up 3 positions from where he started here tonight. Great start of the race for the 00. He is now heading into the S's, hitting those curbs right there that we talked about. Sometimes you hit them a little bit too much, Andre, and your whole night is done in a flash. But that time, all good for the 00 machine of Grant Brown as he tries to close in on the back of Corey Silva, who in my mind has been Mr. Consistency this year.
Yeah, Corey Silva, we haven't talked about him really yet tonight, but you're right. He has been Mr. Consistency. He is always in and around the top 10, always doing really well. I believe he got a couple stage wins earlier in the year. Correct me if I'm wrong. That number 94 has been just really on the ball, and he's been working his way up the points order as the season has progressed, and it seems like he's really taken to these road courses. It's interesting to me, being somewhat new to this league. I've commentated quite a few races by now, but this is still my first season. Kind of watching these guys hash it out on track, and it's interesting to see what drivers are taking to these road courses. And Corey Silva is definitely one of those drivers who is adapting, working his way up the running order. And I'm going to be keeping an eye on him all night.
Yeah, and he is right on the back bumper of last week's race winner, Tyler Seville, in the number 11 machine. He is running in the 7th spot. We're now looking at this battle for second, which hasn't really cooled off at all. You see Nick Curling having a big slide back there. We got the 3-wide TV multicam on the left-hand side. You're looking at the battle for second, and here comes Greg Evans in the number 2 machine. Looks to the inside of the number 18 of Mullins, but Mullins is going to hold off here. Has the preferred line through the S's, but that was as good of a chance that Greg Evans has had yet. Meanwhile, Corey Silva going side by side with Adam Jursky just off of the screen on the right-hand side through the S's. And looks like Silva will make the pass and get himself up into the 7th position. Tyler Seville also making the pass on Adam Jursky. That will move him up to 6th.
Tyler Seville had a bit of a moment in the double right-hander there. He got really sideways, and he was able to gather it up, and he was still fast. It's always incredible to me when these guys can get sideways and slide through the corner. It looks like they're losing time, and then they cross the line, and you look at the lap time, and you think, man, that wasn't half bad considering. So Tyler Seville on the move all the way up into P6 so far, and we're just seeing battles all over the track. That number 2, that overtake attempt last lap, that was a lot of patience, I think, out of Greg Evans. If he really wanted to, I think he could have forced the issue, maybe stayed right there as he's going to make another attempt at it here. Contact to the door of the 18. Both drivers getting sideways. Damage to the door panels of the 18. Now quarter panel contact. These guys can't get away from each other. Evans now giving him a bump going into the carousel. I think he heard me say something about patience and just wanted to prove me wrong there, Pete.
Yeah, I think Greg Evans says, you know what? I'm seeing the number 63 of Johnny Avila just disappear off into the distance. And here comes Evans once again into the double right. There is contact.
Oh, no. There he goes.
Oh, man. Evans gets it pointed in the back in the right direction. But just like what we saw a little while ago, is there's almost contact there with the number 23 of Steve Yenish. Man, oh man, Evans there having to hold on for that 4th position now. And of course, those rear tires are not going to be happy on the Hacksaw PC's number 2 machine. He is slicing his way down through the S's. He will come under fire from the number 23 machine. But just like what we saw earlier in the race there, Andre, between Nick Curling and Doug Mullins. Mullins, extremely difficult to pass right now. And here we got a replay queued up for you on the top right of the screen.
Hard to pass is absolutely right. You can see the number 2 has the position. He is door to door going into this corner. However, he entered the corner so low at such a rate of speed, there really wasn't much of a hope of him making that corner. I think the number 18 thought he could force the 2 into backing out of it and giving up that position and kind of conceding it, but no, the number 2, he was going to make that move. He, like you said, he saw that 63 machine starting to drive away, and he decided it was time to go. And that was some heads-up driving, by the way, from the number 23, Steve Yenish, to steer clear of the number 2. When you're coming around that double right-hander, you can't see anything. You really, really can't, because you're looking straight out your windshield, and when you got a car spinning to your right, you have no idea he's there. So the amount of time he had to react to that was probably minimal, and he still was able to get on the brakes, make sure nothing kind of grew into anything more than it needed to be. So 23, fantastic defensive driving. The number 2 starting to hinder his chances early on. It's a long race, Peter. I'm not sure I agree with that kind of aggression early on, but at the same time, when I put on my driver's hat and I see that 63 driving away and I'm being held up a little bit, I could see getting a little bit ambitious, we'll call it.
And Nick Curling has caught up to the tail end of the number 18 machine of Mullins, so the battle for second is now between the 18 and the 10. Johnny Avila, meanwhile, at the front of the field, has scooted away to about a 5.5 second lead. Nick Curling looking to the inside here through the final corner, but unable to get the power down. Mullins is going to hold on to that spot. Mullins playing a very defensive position right now, but it is paying off for the number 18 wine machine. Of course, it is wine country up here in Sonoma, so probably, you know, would be good for the sponsor on the hood of that car to have a good showing here tonight. And indeed, Mullins is doing well here in the opening 5th of the race. Greg Evans, Steve Yenish in 4th and 5th, then Tyler Seville and Corey Silva in 6th and 7th. And I've been watching that group of cars. Corey Silva, Tyler Seville running about equal pace with Steve Yenish over the last couple of laps, but they're all kind of closing in on the front few drivers. Johnny Avila last time by a 142.4, Doug Mullins a 142.9, Nick Curling a 143.2, Greg Evans fastest on track last time with a 141. He was a second faster than Johnny Avila last time by, and then you got a couple of these other drivers faster than your leaders as well. As you see there on the bottom of the screen, a $10 bonus is going to go to the top finisher with 0 incident points here tonight, and that is easier said than done here at Sonoma. Getting 0 incident points will be tough, and we've already seen a couple of drivers forfeit their chance of winning that $10 here in the opening 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, somehow I don't think Greg Evans or Doug Mullins are going to be the recipients of that award so far, but it is going to be difficult to get that 0x because it's not just about wall contact or car contact. If they dip 2 tires onto the grass a little bit too far, well, I say grass, there's not much of that left around here with this heat, but if they dip it into the dirt a little bit too far, that's 1x right there. So not only do you have to avoid every other car and every other curb and every other wall, but you have to stay on the surface completely for all 1 hour and 15 minutes of this event. So that's, like you said, easier said than done, especially when you're driving basically bricks on wheels, greased bricks on wheels, if I might. This is kind of how these cars are handled, especially with the tire wear. I mean, you were reading off the lap times there, Peter, and the one thing I've noticed is we're 10 laps in, and we've already dropped 3 seconds on our lap times from lap 1 to lap 10.
Yeah, and Jim Foose mentioned this in the chat here just a little while ago as we go on board with the number 10 and Nick Curling continuing to try and get around the number 18 and Mullins. But we'll just see if he can dive to the inside. But looks like Mr. Producer read my mind. The track temperature, 119 degrees Fahrenheit, as Curling is trying to get those Goodyear tires hooked up in all that heat. Wasn't able to do so. But with a track temperature of 119 degrees Fahrenheit, it's going to be very, very slick out there. You mentioned it. Slicked down, greased up hot rods. That's what these drivers have here tonight. They're lightning fast, but at the same time, very, very tricky to drive with that track temperature so high.
Number 18, as you said, it was tricky to drive. That number 18 had a big slide coming out of the kink turn headed into the hairpin. That was a moment. And again, it looks drastic, but that's kind of the thing that these drivers are dealing with every single lap. Yeah, it looks like the number 10 falling back from the 18. Not sure if that's related to maybe the damage affecting his handling. He does have some left front damage, but whatever happened, he dropped back about a second from where he was just a moment ago. Now he's battling with number 2, Greg Evans. He's trying to make a move on the high side. Now he's going to be on the preferred line for this turn. Where does he take it? He takes it to the inside, gets the advantage, but the number 10 not giving it up as the 2 goes into the grass. They're 3 wide almost. They are 3 wide, 1 car in the grass. What a close call there, and that actually allowed the number 10 to drive away a little bit. But we got a replay. What happened to the number 10 coming out of the hairpin? Looks like a little bit of contact to the rear quarter panel of the 18. Got on throttle a little bit too quick, and you combine those two things, and you get a little bit sideways, Peter.
Yeah, too much beans, as our producer likes to say in our ear, but that has also allowed Doug Mullins to really scoot away, now up to about a 2-second advantage in a lap on Nick Curling. So Avila is just over 6 seconds ahead of your second place driver. Nick Curling another 2.5 to 3 seconds back now. Then you have Steve Yenish all over his back bumper. Evans going to slide back to 5th in that scuffle that they had up at the top of the hill. And then you have Corey Silva. We did mention it, but last time by Corey Silva, we did see it. Silva was able to dive to the inside of the number 11 of Tyler Seville. So Silva made the pass up to 6th, and now he's all over the back bumper of Greg Evans, and now he's looking to the left side of Greg Evans. Gonna pass him, make it look easy there coming out of the final corner, so move Corey Silva up into the top 5.
We talked about in qualifying how important it was going to be to capitalize on the mistakes of your competitors, to make sure that, you know, you're not necessarily the fastest car, but you are the car making the fewest mistakes, and that's what Corey Silva is doing. That's how he's worked his way up into the top 5. He has just been like a robot out there. He's been hitting his marks, making no mistakes, and when that number 2 got sideways coming out of the hairpin, he was right there to take advantage and move up into the top 5. And he is not slowing down either. He is closing in on the number 23 of Yanish, and he is really, like you said, being Mr. Consistency. I think you give him a few more laps, he is going to be up there within the podium, no problem.
The one thing that I'm going to be looking for here tonight, Andre, is pit stops. When will we see those pit stops? Because we know this is a 75-minute race, so that puts the halfway mark right around the 38th minute. So with about 38 minutes to go, I expect to see these drivers come down pit road. I think they can make it to the 38th minute of the race and only do this race on a single stop. But we're already starting to see, as we are about halfway into that run, that these drivers are really starting to struggle with their tires. Corey Silva, he's done a stellar job of managing his tires, although he's got the number 2 of Greg Evans looking to his inside here. Can Evans go? Oh, now Corey Silva with a big slide in that number 94 machine. We saw a role reversal there, what we saw a lap prior, as Greg Evans makes the pass back on Corey Silva. Silva back to 6th now, Evans back up to 5th, and we know the number 2 has pace. He's just had difficulty making the pass here tonight. Doug Mullins, my goodness, the number 18, it just had a huge slide out of turn number 2. Almost lost control of the car, but was able to keep it back going. We know the rear tires of that number 18 must be absolutely screaming right now.
That's exactly it. It's not just about managing your tire wear, it's about managing your tire temps. And when you slide around, you're heating them up. And you got a bit of a self-fulfilling cycle right there, because the hotter they get, the more you slide. And the more you slide, the hotter they get. So number 18 really starting to put himself at a risk with all of this sliding. And I'm not quite sure why he'd be driving that thing so aggressively where he would be sliding like that, because he has a bit of a buffer back to Curling in that number 10, at least more of a buffer than some of these guys have. So were it me, I think I might be taking it a little bit easier. But again, it's easy to say that up in the booth when you're watching the race, but then you put on your driver's hat and you see the different perspective where it is go time. And I think what happened with the 94 is a good example of why some of these guys are being so aggressive with their overtakes. Sometimes being behind somebody and getting stuck there, it can be detrimental to your own runs. If somebody's a little bit slower than you, into the hairpin, for example, you have to get on the brakes a little bit harder than you want to. You have to stall out your own run. And when you stall out your own run for the betterment of the people in front of you, that allows the drivers behind you to go ahead and try to make a pass there. And that's exactly what happened to Silva. He checked up for the guy in front of him. The number 2 saw that happen. He dove to the inside. He took advantage. And then Silva was out of the preferred lane. He was up where there is no rubber, where all the dust and marbles have been kicked, and there's no grip there. So when he got on the throttle, he got sideways, lost a little bit of time. And that's why these drivers are being a little bit more aggressive than you might think, because they can't really afford to ride behind somebody when they've got pressure building from the competition behind them.
Yeah, and speaking of Corey Silva, he just put the pass on the number 23 of Steve Yenish. Kind of a similar deal to what you just mentioned. Evans was able to push the 23 of Yenish out wide onto the marbles. He got a little bit of wheel spin coming out of the final corner. That allowed both Greg Evans and Corey Silva to get past the number 23. So move Yenish back to 6th. Silva back up into the top 5. And Curling is running down the number 18 machine. Adam Blattel, the number 7, has gone around in the double right-hander here at the other end of the racetrack from the start-finish line. He's going to let some of these lead lap cars move on through here in the S, I do believe. Corey Silva working his way through now. Steve Yenish is going to have to deal with the number 7 of Adam Blattel as they work their way right through there. There's the white and red number 7 allowing the blue number 23 Tampa SUV Rentals.com machine on past. Tyler Seville also going to close in on the back bumper of the number 23 machine. So a couple of battles for position up here inside the top 8, and this is what you absolutely love to see here on 3 Wide TV. Road course racing and all the action for position. It has not been an uneventful opening 25 minutes here tonight at Sonoma Raceway. We thank you for joining us here in the chat. We got Nikki Warsler, Jim Foose, very active here tonight. I know Nikki Warsler's rooting on the Will Warsler Racing Machines. We got Todd Kirkwood in the chat. Nader 2224 rooting on the number 10 of Nick Curling. And we got Mr. Producer going, whoa, up in our ears. Maybe a moment out of these drivers while I was looking over at the chat. But I'll tell you what, this battle for second is now a 3-car race once again, Andre, between the 18, the 10, and the number 2. They're all back together, pretty much right where they started.
Been such an impressive comeback out of Greg Evans in that number 2. To think that a few laps ago he was spinning through the bottom portions of this double right-hander, sacrificing all kind of time, and now he's right back here battling it out for second. This number 2 is bad fast. The problem with what a lot of these drivers are facing right now is that the leader is really starting to walk away. He's got a 7-second advantage over second place Doug Mullins. And whereas if we were on an oval, a caution would be a little bit more likely. A single car or 2-car incident may bring it out. The field's going to get bunched up, and we're going to have a chance at maybe running down that leader. At a road course, we can almost expect this race to go green to the end, because we've seen numerous cars slide off track, spin out on their own. No cautions to be spoken of. As we got to move for second place, the number 10. Barely any room between the tire stack and the 18. He just barely threads the needle. Unfortunately, not enough momentum to actually complete the overtake. Although I admire the bold move. That was quite the attempt. It just didn't quite work out. And you know, you mentioned how defensive that 18 has been driving, Peter, and that works out now, right? That's going to help him stay in second for now. But as this clock ticks down, as the laps go on and on and on, and these drivers behind him get a little bit more impatient, I think that defensive driver might just start maybe irritating some of the drivers behind that are continually trying to make these passes. And obviously, defensive driving, it's a great skill set to have, and that 18 is using that to his absolute advantage. But I think it kind of puts him at a little bit of risk. We saw it earlier in the event. The number 2 grew a little bit impatient. He said, all right, I'm going to make this move. I'm going to send it up the inside, and one of us is going to drive away from this corner, and one of us probably isn't. And it just so happened the number 2 happened to be the one that didn't make it out of the corner. But next time, who knows what's going to happen. So eventually, once his tires start to really fade away and these guys behind him pick up their pace, I'm not sure how long he can keep up this defensive act.
Looks like Mark Myers, the 04 machine, going off for a little off-road excursion right there, going off the course, but he's going to return to the racing surface now. Meanwhile, that battle for second has grown to about a 4-car battle between the 18, the 10, the 2, and the number 94, as Greg Evans gets a good run coming out of the penultimate corner into the final corner. Contact between the 2 and the 10, and Nick Curling not going to be all too happy with that, but the 2 of Evans is going to be able to squeak his way up into third. Silva now up into fourth in the number 94 machine. He is just profiting on everyone else getting into little scuffles right now, and I have yet to see a scratch on the Jerky Lodge Chevrolet, that bright orange number 94 machine. We're looking a little bit further back in the pack. That's Jackson Van Valkenburg back there. Let's get a look in the top right corner of your screen of that contact, but Evans dives it in. Nick Curling right there on the outside. Evans just carries a little bit too much momentum, pushes out on the racetrack. Just a little bit of a hip check there. And Rubbin's racing here, kind of short track action here at Sonoma. We've seen probably more rubbing and beating and banging here than what we've seen on some of the short tracks this season. But nonetheless, this is a battle for position between AJ Digby, and Digby ran wide. We're now looking at the battle for second here on your screen. It looks like the 2 of Evans, he's going to pull off that pass. He's going to do so cleanly this time. And Evans now up into second, and he has been a little bit quicker than Johnny Avila in the last 5 laps. So keep our eyes on the number 2 machine of Greg Evans. Somewhat reminds me of last season when the number 10 of Nick Curling got out to a really big advantage, and the 2 of Evans had an off mid-race going through the carousel, lost a ton of time, and he was in catch-up mode for the entire race. Couldn't quite run down Nick Curling by the drop of the checkered flag. But here tonight, a lot for the number 2 of Greg Evans to do, as Mullins runs wide in the number 18 machine in the final corner. That did open the door for Corey Silva, and Silva now trying to go for the 3rd position around the outside of number 18 here, and sure enough, Corey Silva to 3rd. What a great run this has been for Corey Silva. I know we keep singing his praises. Qualified in 9th, he's now running in 3rd. That's a gain of 6 positions from the start of the race. Only Alan Young has picked up more positions here tonight. Alan has picked up 9 spots, as Will Worcer going to be the first driver on pit road in his number 29 machine.
Interesting to see the pit sequence start so soon, but if anybody was going to kind of kickstart this pit sequence a little early, I would expect it to be the number 29. He had a lot of damage on that machine, and the sooner he can get that fixed, the better. If he can get any of that repaired, get the car a little bit more on pace, you want to do that as quickly into this event as you can, rather than riding around longer than you really need to. So he's going to get that car serviced as this battle for second continues. Then going back to that number 18, Doug Mullins, as he battles for position with Corey Silva there. He's running 4th right now in that 18 machine. I kind of asked, how long can he keep this defensive act up before some of the drivers behind him start getting a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more authoritative about trying to maybe move him out of the way or be aggressive on their overtakes. I think we got our answer. As soon as the number 2 got to him, and it was in the same corner where they had that incident early on in the race, the 18 kind of went wide. He just checked up a little bit. He let that number 2 go. He did the same thing for the 94 in the hairpin. I think he knew, right? These were drivers that had been aggressive all night long. And the 18, he's had a great run tonight. He's running in the top 5. He was on the podium. That car is fast. There is no reason to risk the guy behind you sending it in and possibly wrecking you out of a great finish when you could just let him go, regroup, try to get that position back later, but make sure that you're still in the show. So a smart play by Doug Mullins, and I think it's one that's going to pay off, because I've noticed his pace ever since he dropped back behind these guys is really increasing. He's staying right with the 94 and the number 2, and through the first sector, coming up this hill, and then into this left-hand, right-hand complex, he's actually a little bit quicker through this part. So he's not out of the game. He sacrificed a little bit of time, but it was a tactical play, and I really agree with that. So that'll be fun to watch what he can do. And the gap to the leader, you mentioned Greg Evans was faster for a lap or 2 there than Johnny Avila, but the gap has continued to grow. It went from 7 seconds just a while ago, now up to 9.5. And I think the pit sequence is going to be something that really shakes up this running order, if anything else, because the tires matter so much. We have dropped 4 seconds on our lap times. That means if somebody comes in just 2 laps sooner than the next guy, they're going to gain 8 seconds on track on those fresher tires. So it's going to be a huge deal getting the undercut And at the same time, the payoff for that later on in the race, where your tires are 2 laps older, that's going to be a huge sort of payment that you have to make for that short run speed. So it's going to get jumbled up, I think. And I'm curious to see what these drivers' philosophies are when it comes to, how soon do we pit? How soon do we take tires? And where does the fuel shake out? I'm not even entirely sure how far they can go on a fuel run here. I would imagine if it's anything like real life, it would be somewhere in the 30s in terms of lap count. But of course, we've seen cars like the number 29 come in way sooner than that, all the way back on lap 17, I believe it was. So this pit sequence, I think, is fixing to make things even more interesting than they've already been in a very interesting race.
Yeah, and right now, looking at things, we are about 4 minutes away from the 4 or 5 minutes away from the halfway mark. I expect to see most cars come down pit road right on the stroke of halfway. Evan Black, Jeff Yenich have both taken their cars to the garage here tonight. Unfortunately for the number 92 as well as the number 89. We are currently with 23 cars on the lead lap, and we're looking at some of these battles a little bit further back in the pack. This is the 00 of Grant Brown, currently running in the 11th position, right in front of Jackson Van Valkenburg. But back behind them, Jordan Harnish and Thomas George has been a good battle. That spot just went to the number 27 machine of Jordan Harnish a lap or two ago. There is Jordan in his Beef Jerseys Cheesecakes Emporium machine. Getting a little bit crossed up right there. Thomas George about a second and a half back in the number 88 machine. We saw AJ Digby running in the 11th position for most of the night, but he has slid back to the 15th position. Obviously, his tires are not doing all too well. Pete Baskins has entered the pit lane in the number 39 machine. There he is. In fact, he might have taken a tow in that car. Not sure if that's true or not. Nope. Not hearing that is the case, but he is getting fresh tires on here for the final 40 minutes here tonight at the beautiful Sonoma Raceway. Here comes the number 23 of Steve Yenish on pit road. So pit road starting to get a little bit busy, and Andre, this is what I expected to see right around the halfway mark. Woody Mahan there in the 84 Mahan Speed Laboratories, did he just have it off in his Ford Mustang? Not sure. It seemed like he was off the pace a little bit as Grant Brown and Jordan Harnish are both coming to pit road this time. So yeah, pit road getting busy right here, right now on 3Y TV.
It really is, and again, I think this is where things start to shake up a little bit, because tires matter so much here, like I said, that these drivers coming in a little bit sooner could get a really great advantage, and we're just going to have to wait and see how that plays out. As we got a car off track, Michael Krobach in the 72 went off the track. They're coming up the hill, but we are, like you said, roughly halfway through this race, so that is when I would expect to see pit road get a little busy. Some of these drivers opting to kind of cut the run in half. At a road course like this, that's the safe play. And again, when it comes to road racing, I think safe is usually better. I've always told anybody who's ever asked me, because I used to be kind of big into road racing, and I've always told anybody who is new to road racing or new to road courses, when it comes to road racing, safer is better. Whether that means slowing down your lap times to be a little bit more consistent, or taking the safer pit strategy or tire strategy, usually that ends up working out the best on road courses, because they're so unpredictable, they are so chaotic, they're so crazy compared to certain other types of tracks, that just playing it safe and minimizing the chaos of these races is the way to go. Now, the number 18, Mullins, is making his way down pit road, so he's going to be the first out of our top 5, I believe, to make their way down pit road, which means he is going to have an entire lap on fresher tires, as we have another car off track going up the hill. That one lap could make a world of difference here, Peter, because he was right with Corey Silva and Greg Evans. Now, I don't think he's going to be able to catch Johnny Avila for having come in a little bit earlier, but he could easily cycle back out in second with that move.
Yeah, we just had another car go off the racetrack. That would be the number 24 Young Gun Creations machine of Alan Young, but he spun it around and is now pointing in the right direction. He spun coming onto the drag strip right here, coming out of the carousel, and had a pretty big moment there. As you see, the number 2 machine of Greg Evans, and there's the 12 of Jackson van Valkenburg on pit road, getting some 4 tires, but hearing that there was some contact between possibly the number 12 and one of his competitors on pit road as well. So we'll see if that affects Jackson van Valkenburg in any way. But I'll tell you what, Andre, we have seen short track action here tonight, and I think we've got a replay of that pit road incident lined up for you. There's Thomas Georgiou. Man, I don't think there was any. Oh, yep, there was contact there. 2 drivers trying to head for what looked like the same pit stall. Here comes Evans and Corey Silva onto pit road. Johnny Avila going to stay out, however.
This is a tough pit road. It really is. It's got a turn in it, so it makes it a little bit difficult to see exactly where your stall is. And when you got 2 drivers like that they got their pit stalls 1 and 2 right there together, it can be a little bit difficult to navigate. And of course, that is what caused the bit of an issue between the 88 and the 12. We've seen a few pit road mishaps over the season, and at a track like this, kind of expect to see a few more. But I'm really intrigued by the decision. Whoa, his idiot got a little sideways there. The number 63, he decided to stay out, and he is going to make another lap around the circuit. Meanwhile, a lot of the drivers behind him, such as, I believe, Curling and Mullins, they both pitted already. So they got fresher tires. They are gaining time on the leader as we speak. And I don't know, maybe the 63 is just confident enough in his speed. He thinks he can come in a little bit later and still cycle out in front.
Oh, no! Sorry to cut you off, Andre, but Jackson van Valkenburg, the number 12 machine, has gone around in the S's. He got it back going, but I saw some smoke. We'll have to see whether or not we can get a replay lined up for you, but you see the back end of the number 12 machine pretty heavily damaged. He was just on pit road a moment ago on fresh tires and was probably trying to give it all he could out there on the racetrack to try and make up as much time as possible, but he went for a spin. Here we go, coming through that right-hander that kind of crests. He got a little bit sideways and into the tire barrier. In fact, he got very lucky that that number 12 machine isn't worse for wear than it is, because it is definitely a spot on the racetrack you do not want to have an accident. Meanwhile, race leader Johnny Avila on pit road here, Andre.
Now we get to see where does everybody cycle out, as Brian Yalzik is going to join him down pit road as well. Here comes the number 2 and the 18 making their way out of the hairpin. We're going to see exactly where they cycle out. Avila has one of the first pit stalls, so he's not going to have to waste too much time coming out of pit road. There he goes, right at the pit road exit, past the cones. He's back on track. Here comes the number 2, and the difference is going to be about 4 seconds between them. So that was really impressive, I think, for the number 63, Johnny Avila, to stay out as long as he did and still cycle out ahead of some of these guys behind.
Yeah, and Avila now has the fresher tires to boot, so we have seen the tire fall off be extremely significant. I think we saw about 3 seconds in the first 6 laps here tonight. So Avila's going to be enjoying the fresh rubber on the number 63 Chevy Camaro. Not a scratch on that Chevy here tonight so far. Greg Evans back behind him in second. Third is Doug Mullins. He pulled off a pass on the Corey Silva using the undercut. So Silva now back in the 4th position as they run. And then Nick Curling a little bit further back, as here comes Alan Young to pit lane. Steve Yenish is quite a ways behind Nick Curling right now, and then Tyler Seville another couple of seconds back behind Steve Yenish. Then you have AJ Digby, and Digby is yet to pit here tonight in the number 14 High Flow Chevy Camaro. There he is. I expect to see him on pit road here extremely shortly. Adam Jersky is currently riding in the 9th position. He has come down pit road just a couple of laps ago. He is about 2 seconds up the road from Michael Krobach, who's about another 2 seconds or so, 2 to 2.5 seconds up the road from Jordan Harnish, who is under fire from the 00 of Grant Brown. Hearing that Greg Evans was the fastest car on the racetrack last lap, but we'll see what it's like this time by with Johnny Avila on the fresher tires. So Of course, Avila just came off pit road. There's a little bit of a slide there, looks like through turn number 3. So we'll just have to wait and see what that number 63 can do. He hasn't turned the fastest lap of the race. Greg Evans, last time by, actually turned not only the fastest lap out there on the racetrack, but the fastest lap of the race up till now with a 139.426. Avila, the only other driver in the 1 minute 39 bracket here during the race, he turned a 139.477 at the start of the race here, Andre.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me because the 63 has those fresher tires and he's been pulling away all race long. You'd think with the raw speed that he had in addition to the fresher tires, he would really be extending that gap. But I think that really just speaks to the aggression out of that number 2 right now. He is driving the wheels off of that machine, trying to play catch up, trying to get up to the leader because he knows that he's got a car that could win this race. He's got the pace. He knows the track. The car's feeling pretty good. But that mistake early on was extremely costly. And I think any competitor out here doesn't want to, if they make a mistake like that cost them that much, they want to try and compensate for that. They want to make up for that. They don't want to say at the end of the day, yep, I made a bit of a flub on lap 2 and it cost me the win. Especially when it's an event, it's an hour and 15 minutes. You're going to do everything you can to make sure that that mistake does not cost you what you know you're capable of. And that number 2 is driving hard. The gap pretty much remaining the exact same last time around, only 1/100th of a second difference. The advantage, of course, going to Avila. Now, it could be, Peter, that Avila is just on slightly colder tires, but he's had about a lap and a half now to get some heat in him, and it still seems like that number 2 is matching his pace. So it's going to be interesting to see. I got to wonder if maybe Greg Evans kind of likes the worn tires a little bit more. Sometimes when the tires wear, the car feels a little bit more numb. It's not quite as touchy through the corners, and it might not be as fast, but it feels better. And it kind of allows you to push the limits a little bit further. So maybe that's what Greg Evans is experiencing right now. He's Johnny Avila tends to, prefer the pressure tires. We're just going to have to wait and see, but we got a battle between the 94 and the 18. These guys can't seem to get away from each other, Peter. The 18 is right on his bumper.
Yeah, well, the 18 of Doug Mullins used the undercut to pitting on pit road 1 lap sooner. But Corey Silva now able to use the 1 lap pressure tires to get around the line number 18. And I do believe that the number 94 machine will be able to disappear off into the distance in the Turkey Lodge Chevy Camaro. Really impressed with the pace out of Corey Silva here tonight. Here comes AJ Digby. He's come out of pit road finally. He just came down to make his first pit stop of the race here just a half lap ago. And with the number 12 machine of Jackson Van Valkenburg having his moment there as they try and work their way around the number 45 of John Eckhart IV. I would expect Digby to be able to catch up and pass Jackson Van Valkenburg here quickly. This is a battle for the 15th position out there on the circuit. This has been a good battle that I've been watching. Both of these cars came down pit road together. That's Jordan Harnish and Grant Brown. Grant Brown in the 00 machine, which unfortunately you can't quite make it out, but that is the Tarantula Esports Ford Mustang. And right back behind him is the Clipping That Apex number 55 machine of Brian Yazik. And Yazik clipped that Apex and just flew around that 00 machine. Yazik now going to move up into 11th. And just looking to see when Yazik came down pit road. He came down pit road only 3 laps ago, so he's got about 3 lap fresher tires than these cars around him. So I expect Yazik to get himself back up into the top 10 to get around the number 27 machine of Jordan Harnish, who's just up the road from him. And then further up the road from him is a Loud Pedal Motorsports machine as well. That is the number 72 of Michael Krobach, who's running in the 9th position. The thumbs up, cancer down, number 72. We've seen the thumbs up, cancer down livery on the 55 of Brian Yazik this season. Now it is on Michael Krobach here tonight, racing for a good cause out here at Sonoma Raceway. But then it's a long gap from Michael Krobach up to Adam Jersey, and an even bigger gap up to Steve Yenish, who is currently running in the 7th position. Ooh, man. Number 39 there, Pete Baskins, caught and put down a lap by Johnny Avila. But Greg Evans, he isn't losing a whole lot of time on your race leader right now here, Andre. The 2 has really got the bit between his teeth.
Yeah, he was actually 1 second faster last time around than Johnny Avila. And I can't say that that has anything to do with that lap traffic he had at the end of the lap, because I don't think that really cost him that much. I think the number 2 is just absolutely wheeling that thing right now. Because the lap before that, he actually matched the leader's pace identically. He was 1/1000th of a second slower the last time before that. And then, of course, this lap, he gained an entire second. So that number 2 really trying to get back up to the lead and fight it out with this number 63. Give it a few more laps. I think that is a battle that we will see, because Greg Evans, he's on a mission. He is not going to be denied to come all the way back up from where he was in the grid after he had spun early on all the way to now. It's just been an incredible rally. And I know we've seen a lot of incredible comebacks all throughout the season, drivers who have made mistakes early on and come back. But this has been really something special to watch. And Johnny Avila, got to be getting a little bit nervous. It's always a little bit unsettling when you're looking at your scoring and timing and you see that guy behind you just chipping away at the time, and you're trying to figure out, well, what is he doing? Where is he gaining that time? And the thing about an oval is generally you can find out what they're doing. Maybe they're running a little bit higher than you. Maybe they're running a little bit lower. Maybe they're driving it in deeper. But at a road course, there is a bunch of turns and a bunch of sections on this track that they might be a little bit better at, and you might have no idea where they're finding that speed. So as Greg Evans chips away another 5/10 that lap, this gap is just diminishing.
We have breaking news. Your third place driver, Corey Silva, just came down pit road and has parked the number 94 machine. My, oh my. The 94 to the garage from the 3rd position. That is absolutely disastrous for a driver who was having one stellar run here tonight at Sonoma. We'd be singing his praises from pretty much the drop of the green flag. Silva here tonight, gonna have to put it on the hauler, and he will be only, I think, the 4th or 5th retirement here tonight at Sonoma. That is a big shame. Hearing that Mark Cohn and the number 51 is also taking it to the garage, so that will make Silva the 6th retirement. Todd Kirkwood in the chat saying he knows the reason why, in communication with the number 94, Corey Silva, saying for some reason iRacing did not put fuel in the car. Here comes Jason Stewart in the number 1 machine. He's coming down pit road. He is actually making his first pit stop of the night, so he had yet to pit, but this will be it for him to make it for the final 25 minutes. There is the 00, Grant Brown, running right behind the 27. This battle, we looked away for a little bit while Brian Yazik was able to get around the 00. Well, Yazik has gotten a little bit further up the road now. He got around Jordan Harnish a lap or 2 ago, so that puts that battle, a battle for the 10th position, I believe, once it all sorts out with the number 94 machine. We'll see whether or not that is true or not, but for right now, that is a battle indeed for the 10th position. There's the 88 machine. We got a quick look of Thomas George. He's running in the 12th position, right in front of Will Worsler. You see Worsler there kind of in the back of the screen, but the 88, Thomas George, has much fresher tires. So the 29 of Worsler, next car behind him for position is AJ Digby, about 8 seconds back. We know AJ Digby's on probably the freshest tires in the field, except for Jason Stewart, of course. Meanwhile, Will Worsler's on the oldest tires in the field. So we'll see if that 8-second gap closes up here in the closing 23 minutes, well past the halfway mark here in the Holl Sheetmetal 150. Big shout out to Holl Sheetmetal for sponsoring tonight's American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series race. But we still have 23.5 minutes, and of course, once the checkered flag falls, it won't be until the timer expires. So they have to kind of wait. Even if they go across the start-finish line with 1 second left, they still have to do another full lap because the timer's non-zero. So we'll have to see how that exactly plays out here tonight. But definitely a tough break for Corey Silva here, Andre, with 23 minutes left.
Yeah, that's horrible to see. I mean, there were very few drivers out here that were really working as hard as he was. We mentioned how far up the grid he had driven, how consistent he was, and what we are reading from the chat here is that the sim just didn't put fuel in it. He had the box ticked. He did everything right on his end, and it just didn't give him fuel. Now I've had that happen as a crew chief before. I was crew chiefing for somebody, and they came down pit road. They wanted fuel and tires, and I had that fuel box ticked. I know I looked at it right, and they left pit road, didn't get any fuel. It was a thing that happens, and it's really unfortunate, especially for Corey Silva. And of course, the decision to park it, I can't blame him. At that point, you're out of the game. You're going to have to make an extra pit stop that nobody else in the field is going to have to make. So you're essentially putting yourself, if you assume they're going to lose about 40 seconds total between making their way down pit road, getting their car serviced, and making their way out of pit road, that 40 seconds, you're not going to make that back up in 20 minutes. It's just not going to happen. You could have the fastest car on the track and be the best driver in the world. You're not doing anything with that 20 minutes from 40 seconds back. So it's one of those deals where you hate to see it, and it's just rough. It's rough to watch that, especially for somebody who was working so hard. In the meantime, all that going on, Johnny Avila is back to extending his lead. It seemed like Greg Evans was chipping away at it little by little. Now, if you look at the timing and scoring there, you can see the last few laps. Well, no, there Evans. Evans got another 10th there. It's been kind of back and forth, I suppose, because it was 9 tenths to Evans one lap, 4 tenths the next. Then it was 5 tenths advantage and 3 tenths advantage to Avila. And last time it was right back to Evans. So kind of a game of lap game tennis here. They're just throwing them back and forth.
Yeah, definitely reminds me of this race 1 year ago where Evans made a mistake and then spent his whole race trying to catch up and just ended up a little bit short. We'll see whether or not the same storyline holds true here tonight. Meanwhile, the battle for third position now between Doug Mullins and Nick Curling is continuing to be red hot. We've seen these two have a little bit of contact here earlier in the race. In this corner that's coming up, this hairpin right here, kind of at the end of the drag strip, Curling trying to get a good launch out of the carousel. He's going to look to the inside of the number 18. Can he send it? He does send it. Looks to the inside. Mullins giving him a little bit of room here. And no, Curling going to have to back out of it. The 18 of Mullins got a good launch there into the S's, and Curling going to have to kind of live another lap here, Andre, to see if he can set him up maybe just a little bit better. But Curling having a really good run through the S's. Couldn't quite get the power down soon enough. That seems like the real struggle here tonight is getting the rear tires to hook up to make the pass. You can kind of get alongside with someone, but you really can't get throttle happy. Here comes Curling, sending it down the inside, almost contact. Now can Curling get the power down? I just mentioned it, that seems to be the struggle. No, he cannot. He cannot get the power down. Mullins going to hold on to third here for yet another lap. Curling might have thought about the crossover over there, but Andre, nothing there for him.
No, not quite. And you talk about how they just can't get the power down, and that is absolutely correct. These cars have a lot of torque, especially in these lower gears. It gets to the point where if you're coming out of that hairpin in second gear and you press your pedal halfway down, you're still getting up to nearly 6,000 revs before you've even reached halfway on the throttle. So a lot of wheel spin, a lot of torque that these guys have to manage, and the inputs have to be so ginger coming out of these turns. Otherwise, you're just going to end up spinning yourself out, sliding into the competition. And of course, that's not what Nick Curling is trying to do. That's not what Doug Mullins is trying to do. Nobody's trying to do that. They're trying to keep their cars pointed in the right direction, and they're trying to make these moves as clean as they can make them. We've seen a lot of short track action, a lot of bumps and kind of chrome horns, but a lot of that I don't think is all that intentional. I think these guys slided into the turn with full intention of making a clean pass, but these cars just ain't with them. They send it into the corner, they slide around. You could see even in that attempt that he made there through the hairpin, the number 10 slid into that corner. There was tire smoke pluming from the fender wells as he dove it into the corner. And these cars, like I said, greased bricks on wheels. That is all they are. So it's tough to make these passes. And Johnny Avila, speaking of making passes, our leader, he lost a lot of time last lap to Greg Evans, and now he's dealing with some lap traffic. So things might be getting a little bit interesting in the battle for the lead is actually, nope, that time, Johnny Vila with the advantage. He gained 5/10 that time. So, again, these guys just trading off lap times back and forth, one after another. Nobody really consistently outrunning the other. But the lap traffic starting to become a bit more of a factor late into this game. Maybe that's going to play into it as the number 63 dives down to the bottom of the number, I believe that's the number 45, John Eckert. Number 2 is going to sneak his way by as well. But lap traffic could be a game changer. It all depends on where you catch them, Peter. There's some places on this track where you can catch lap traffic and not even think twice about it. No sweat. Some sections, though, if you got a gaggle of cars in front of you and you're the leader, you start sweating because there's not really any good way to get around them at certain points. Like on the backstretch where you're kind of in those high-speed chicanes. You're not really going to want to try to pass anybody there, especially with how narrow the track gets. So it's going to be really interesting. And one thing that I've noticed also is that when Greg does outpace the leader, when he's faster than Johnny Avila, it seems like where he gains that time is in the final sector of the track. So after that double right-hander, making his way through that section there and then through the winding backstretch, that's where he starts to close in. Whereas Avila, he's been fast in Sector 1 all race long. He's fast up the hill, he's fast through that left-right complex, and he's fast down into the carousel. So kind of a polar opposite situation where these two drivers are outpacing each other on two separate sides of the track. Now we're on our 3-wide TV multicam. We got two battles going on because, of course, this being a road course, we got battling all over the track. It's going to be Nick Curling trying again through the hairpin. On the top right corner of your screen, sideways goes the 18. A little bit of a door check. They're going to stay side by side. Coming to the line, can Nick Curling hang on? He does. They're still side by side. The 18 in the preferred line. But coming up to the top of the hill, it's going to be a right-hander. That means the 10 car is going to have the advantage. Can he get the power down? Not quite. The 18 managing to play defense again, Peter. What a move by that 18. Hanging on the high side.
Yeah, just to update folks at home about the battle for 10th position between Grant Brown and Jordan Harnish. Grant Brown able to make that pass stick. He's now up to 10th, but we got 2-3 car battles here. We got the battle for the 3rd position between Doug Mullins, Nick Curling, Tyler Seville. And then we also have the battle brewing for 7th between Adam Jersky, Michael Krobach, and Brian Yazik is closing in on those two as well. So we got this 3-wide TV multicam for a reason here, folks, so you can see what's going on different portions of the racetrack. You see Nick Curling closing in on the back of the number 18 machine here. Now, if you're wondering about the relative pace between Adam Jersky and Michael Krobach, well, Krobach over the last couple of laps has been lapping about a half-second faster than Adam Jersky. And then you have Brian Yazik, who's lapping about 0.3 of a second faster than Michael Krobach. So if you do the math at home, that's about 0.8 of a second faster than Adam Jersky. So you can see now that the green number 69, the orange number 72, and the white 55, they're all together right there on the racetrack. And meanwhile, Nick Curling is looking to the inside of Doug Mullins again. There's contact between those two cars coming out of the final corner. Here we go. Maybe Curling can pull it off this time. It looks like he has. Moved Curling up into 2nd. And now the two Will Worcester teammates of Mullins and the 11 of Seville will be in the 4th and 5th positions here, Andre. But Curling finally able to make that pass stick.
It was a great move for Curling there, but I don't want to alarm anybody. That battle for the lead that I talked about, how I said we might see that by the end of the race, well, here it is. Greg Evans closed the gap just incredibly the last time around. He went from 1.6 seconds back to 0.6 seconds. He has a big slide coming down the drag strip here, but he is now pretty much at the bumper within striking distance of Johnny Avila. And this is the first time all race long that Avila's really had any competition from behind, and unfortunately the number 2 overdrove that corner. It was kind of out of frame there, but you're going to notice now the number 2 dropped back a ways. He slid big time coming out of the drag strip into that double right-hander. He was all the way on the apron in the marbles, kicking up dust, and that cost him dearly because now that car looks like it's still loose on the backstretch. Probably a little bit of dirt and dust on those tires that he needs to get cleaned off before he can really strike again. But man, that was unfortunate to see. He just got up to the 63. He's been working towards this all race long and then makes a little bit of a mistake. But he's not slowing down. Through that hairpin, he gained time again. So slowly, he's making up for that mistake that he made as more battles continue on around the track. Of course, the battle between Curling and Doug Mullins, that hasn't went anywhere. Doug Mullins did concede the position to Nick Curling, but he's pretty much staying with them, save for a minor bobble coming out of the hairpin that cost him a little bit of time. And now the 18, actually, with having made that bobble, he's going to be under fire from Tyler Seville in that number 11 machine. He got to the bumper going up the hill, and that means we have a battle for fourth as they make their way through this left-right complex. Top right of your screen, that is the battle for the lead. And on the bottom left, that's a whole other battle going on. I believe that is the number 55, as well as Krobach in at number 72. Those guys have been kind of duking it out a little bit. But yeah, kind of a yo-yo effect up front here, Peter. The number 2 catches up, falls back, catches up, falls back. Question is he going to be able to make the move as time's running out? We got just over 10 minutes left.
And we also have a new fourth place driver. Tyler Seville just made the pass on Doug Mullins in the carousel to move last week's race winner, the Arch Telecom Chevy, up into the fourth position here. So the Will Worcester Racing teammates trading positions. And now we can see what Tyler Seville, can he run down Nick Curling and see if he can battle for the third position, as Tyler Seville has picked up 4 positions from the start of the race. There is the battle for the race lead going into the final corner. But battles all over this racetrack. Jersky and Krobach, that battle has closed back in, as Brian Yazik is right behind Michael Krobach as well. Then looking just a little bit further back, AJ Digby finally did catch and pass Will Worcester. I mentioned about 10 laps ago or so that Digby had the freshest tires versus Horsler, who had the older tires. So move AJ up into the 13th position. In fact, I'm not sure how that happened, and there might have been a little bit of a bobble out of the number 29 machine of Will Worcester, because he definitely seemed low this last lap, and that's how AJ Digby was able to get by. It was indeed a bobble. Grant Brown has pulled away quite a bit from Jordan Harnish, so he's solidly in the 10th position. The battle's happening all around this racetrack for some positions up near the front of the field, that is for sure. As you see Curling there trying to pull away from Tyler Seville, looking for back-to-back podiums here at Sonoma Raceway in consecutive years for the number 10 machine. We go on board right here with Greg Evans, and you mentioned it, Andre. He looks very good through this final sector of the racetrack, although he had a little bit of a wiggle there, and you can see the 63 scoot away just a little bit.
Now remember, the number 63 has a little bit fresher tires by something to the tune of about 3 laps, which is quite a big difference, which is why it's really impressive that the number 2 is, not only keeping up with him, but running him down. So occasionally we're going to see that number 2 really fighting loose, and I think that's a product of those older tires. It's something that he's having to fight through that isn't quite as big of an issue for Johnny Avila in that 63, but nonetheless, Johnny has done a phenomenal job driving defensively, watching that mirror, and making sure that he keeps the number 2 behind him. But man, it's really getting close now as they come up the hill. The number 2 is right at the bumper. You could not put a piece of paper between these guys as they come through the left-right complex. The number 2 gets up on the curb, left side tires high up in the air as he makes his way into this turn. Does he put the bumper to him? He does! The bumper to the back of the 63, and he loses it! He spins! Oh my goodness. All of that effort, all of that work, and that is how it ends.
And Greg Evans, he is still going to come back out onto the racetrack in the second position. He will be absolutely kicking himself in that number 2 machine here now with just about 5.5 laps to go. We have 8 minutes, 50 seconds up there on the scoreboard, but that is going to equate to about 5.5 laps. Let's go on board, ride with the number 2 machine, gets in a little bit deep. Don't think there was any contact, Andre, but a little bit of wheel hop out of the back end of the number 2 machine right there, and enough to kick that back end around. And once you start to get the rear wheel hop, it literally feels like the rear end of the car is hopping around and it's just not gripping. Very easy to have that happen, especially when you're in tight quarters with someone. And I just got to say one thing. I know Greg Evans went around. I know he'll be disappointed, but great job of staying off the back of Johnny Avila and not ending Avila's night.
Absolutely. I thought there was a little bit of contact from my perspective. I was watching on the chase cam, but that hood cam showed there was no contact. He went into that corner, and he definitely had the momentum. If he wanted to put the bumper to the leader, he could have. But he did everything he could to get on the brakes, stay off the leader, not ruin his night. And unfortunately, that came at the cost of a lot of wheel hop out of that number 2, like you pointed out. And once it started going around, there was nothing he could have done any different. Keep that thing straightened out. But tell you what, Peter, we haven't done this yet tonight, and we are running out of time. So how about we do a quick through the field of our top 10, starting out Johnny Avila. He has led just about, I believe, every single lap tonight for the last hour and 6 minutes. And really, nobody's had much for him. The number 2 did run him down. They had that battle. But now, with not much pressure from behind, it's the Johnny Avila show. He can kind of ride, take it easy, try to take this one home.
Yeah, he is currently 8 seconds ahead of Greg Evans. That's how much time that number 2 machine lost, and you cannot say he has not put in a gallant effort here tonight in the number 2 machine. Of course, your reigning Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series champion, Greg Evans, right here. He is very much solidly in the second position, however, as he is about 6 seconds up the road from Tyler Seville. And we must have missed this, folks, because Tyler Seville has worked his way into the third position as something happened to driver of the number 10 machine, because last time by, the number 10 of Curling was in the third position. Something must have happened to driver of the number 10 machine, or was the 11 just able to run him down and get around him? But for now, Tyler Seville, last week's race winner at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in the longest race of the season, the 300-mile Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown event, is now up into third. How about that? There's Nick Curling in fourth, started on the pole position, picked up that Midwest Simulations pole award at the beginning of the show, but very quickly lost the lead and has had a couple of scuffles. I think a lot of people are going to be curious to know whether or not his damage might have affected the number 10 machine here tonight. Trying to go back-to-back here at Sonoma. It looks like he's going to come up a couple positions short and maybe going off into the gravel there, Andre.
Looking back to fifth, we got Doug Mullins in the number 18. Defensive driver of the day, I would say. He's done a phenomenal job at fending off the attacks from behind, just kind of hitting his marks and making his car as wide as possible. For a large portion of this race, that's what kept him in the podium. Now he's kind of slipped back to fifth, but in a race as eventful as this one has been, we cannot complain about running top 5. A lot of competition, a lot of chaotic moments and close calls tonight. Top 5 consistent run, and closing in on that number 10. A little bit further back, we got Steve Yenish in 6th. Now, Yenish is a driver who he's not made his way into the top 5 yet tonight, I believe, but he's been in and around the top 10 consistently. He's had a few close calls. He did have that number 2 spinning around right in front of him early on in the race. A little bit of an evasive maneuver there saved his day, kept his car clean, and he has used that clean car to stay right here in the top 10. The car's still looking pretty clean as he makes his way down the backstretch. Adam Jersky, the Beef Jersky's Cheesecake, number 69. He's also running top 10 back there in 7th. He was a bit of a benefactor to the pit road strategy, went up the running order a little bit, then kind of sacrificed a little bit more time once those tires got old. But right now, as he makes his way down the backstretch, that car's looking pretty good. I think he'll be happy with the top 10 tonight. Michael Krobach in 8th. He's had a bit of an eventful day, involved in a couple of incidents, but through it all, stayed right here in the top 10. He's actually closing in something to the tune of about 2/10 a lap, actually 3/10 last time, to the car ahead of him. So he is quickly making himself known to the number 69. That might be a battle brewing that we see pretty soon here. Brian Yazek, he's been kind of battling a wounded horse all night long. He's had rear end damage since lap 1 on that number 55. And of course, at a track like this, that's going to make your car handle pretty poorly. And he has really been struggling with it. But despite that, he kind of followed the same pit strategy as the leader. He followed the number 63 down pit road the same lap. So he's got pretty fresh tires. He's closing in on the car ahead of him. These 3 cars kind of becoming a gaggle, and a battle brewing right there. And to round out your top 10, Grant Brown. made a lot of passes tonight. He's been up and down the order in that 00 machine, but he's got a pretty clean car. Looking at the front and back of this car, not a scratch on this thing, which is kind of a rare sight. So one consistent, clean night at a road course, you can't ask for much more than that when you got guys sliding around off the track and spinning off each other's bumpers and things like that. So good night for Grant Brown. And that's going to be our top 10 through the field as the number 63 navigates a little bit more lap traffic. But for the most part, Peter, like I said, he can kind of put it in cruise control, I'd say, for these final 2 minutes because he still has a 6-second gap. Greg Evans is closing the gap a lot. I mean, he is flying, but I just don't think time is on his side.
Yeah, I don't think time is on his side either. Just want to update you folks a little bit further back. Thomas George in the number 88 just made a pass recently on the number 27 of Jordan Harnish to take away the 11th position. Jordan Harnish and AJ Digby are locked in a little bit of a battle as well between those two. They're about a second between each other out there on the racetrack. In fact, now under a second as they work their way down through the S's. Will AJ have a look here? Oh, AJ runs way wide there going into the penultimate corner. He's still going to have enough time to run down the 27 machine. Remember, AJ Digby is on relatively fresh tires compared, well, I say relatively. They're not fresh by any means at this stage in the run, but he pitted 17 laps ago. Most of these other cars around him pitted about 5 laps earlier than AJ, so we'll see whether or not AJ can pull off that pass. Meanwhile, this battle that you alluded to, Andre, between Jersey, Krobach, and Yazik, still, they haven't seen a pass out of this group. It seems like it's kind of simmered down here with just about 2 laps to go here for your leader. The number 63 machine, I believe, will be seeing the white flag here in the number 63 machine. I don't see the white flag come up, but surely that will be the white flag for the number 63 of Johnny Avila, beginning his final lap here around Sonoma Raceway. And I'll tell you what, Andre, we haven't had a whole lot of winners this season. We've only had 4 up to now. Jeff Yanish has got 1 win. Tyler Seville has gone to victory lane 3 times, but Scott Eckrich and Greg Evans have combined to win the remaining races. Here tonight, looks like we're going to have winner number 5 on the season, Johnny Avila. And we have been mentioning up here in the 3Y TV booth that, hey, he's been knocking on the door. He just needs one of these races to go his way. And here we are at Sonoma. It's gone his way. Just a half a lap left for the number 63 machine here tonight.
He is going to be ecstatic. Whoa! We have a move being made there on the top right of the screen. That was quite a moment there. But yeah, you got to think the 63 has got to be happy with this run. This is a tough track, a tough race, and the competition could not have made it any harder for him. I mean, that number 2 was giving it everything he had. He was running him down by sometimes a second per lap. But through it all, the 63, he was the more consistent driver. He was the guy who was able to take the lead early on, set the pace of the race, and take control. And now, as he comes out of the hairpin for the final time, checkered flag does wave with a big slide from our leader. And it's going to be Johnny Avila that takes the checkered flag for the Holl Sheetmetal 150 here at Sonoma.
Yeah, big congratulations to the number 63 machine. Here comes second place across the line, Greg Evans. Tyler Seville going to come across in third, last week's race winner. Then Nick Curling able to hold on to the spot in front of Doug Mullins. Steve Yenish a little bit further back in the number 23 machine. Adam Jersky, Michael Krobach. We might see something out of Krobach into the final corner. You see Steve Yenish doesn't have any pressure out back, except Mark Myers goes around to the 04 machine. He's a lapped car. But it does look like Adam Jersky will hold on in the number 69 machine in the 7th position. Michael Krobach, Brian Yazik in 9th. But I'm keeping my eye on AJ Digby and Jordan Harnish because we saw last lap, Andre, AJ Digby sent it into the final corner, and he might be able to send it this time on the 27 of Harnish. Is he going to do it? Harnish throws a block. Can AJ get the power out of the final corner here? It's going to be a drag race between the 27 and the 14.
He's got the preferred line coming out of the corner, but now as he gets a little bit sideways, they're going to door slam to the line. Who's it going to be? Man, I think Digby got it there, Peter.
AJ Digby picks up the 11th position out of the final corner. Can you believe that? Just a 10th of a second between AJ Digby and Jordan Harnish. Digby going to come home 11th, Harnish in 12th. Thomas George in the 88 dropped a couple positions there late, unfortunately, in his 88 machine. But Johnny Avila is one very happy camper up at the front of the field. I saw him go off track. I'm wondering if that's going to be a 1X and possibly give away his opportunity at the $10 prize if all the drivers weren't across the line and it wasn't an official race. But Johnny Avila definitely extremely impressive here tonight, and going to be super excited to burn it down right here for all of you on 3Y TV. Going to victory lane for the first time this season. A little bit of a new look on that number 63 machine as well from what we have been used to in the first 10 races or so this season. And now getting to throw up some smoke for all the crowd. That's a great look here on 3Y TV, a great camera angle to show one very happy driver.
I can almost guarantee you, Peter, we see that paint scheme make a comeback, because sometimes race car drivers are a little bit superstitious, and he's probably looking at this like, hey, I just changed my paint scheme for the first time all year and finally got my win, finally had that breakthrough. So I would not be surprised to see this lime green number 63 roll off the trailer next week.
That is very, very true, and he's probably going to burn that thing down until that engine grenades. We've seen that quite a few times this season here on 3Y TV as well. We definitely will have some post-race interviews for you folks here in just a minute with all of your top 3 finishers. It's going to be interesting to hear from the number 2 of Greg Evans, as well as Tyler Seville and Johnny Avila. I'm a bit surprised. I'm curious to know what Seville's going to have to say as well, because, you know, Seville's another one of those. Much like Corey Silva, until Corey Silva had iRacing decide to be kind of a jerk to him here tonight. But Tyler Seville minded his P's and Q's, kept the car in the racetrack, and comes home with a 3rd place finish. Very impressive. It was basically what Corey Silva was on track to do until he had his problem.
Absolutely. I think kind of what we said about consistency being king earlier on, Peter, that was proven right in more ways than one tonight. I mean, our leader was one of the most consistent cars on the track. That got him the win. Of course, our 3rd place finisher, or I'm sorry, not, 3rd place finisher, Tyler Seville. Like you mentioned, he worked his way up through the grid and made a lot of passes, and he did that by just being consistent, not making mistakes, not spinning his tires, not doing anything crazy. And that got him the podium. So consistency was king tonight as we take a final look at the final results for our Holl Sheetmetal 150. Johnny Avila obviously taking home the win in dominating fashion. He's going to bring it home for Canada in that number 63. Greg Evans with a impressive, but I'm sure to him, disappointing P2 after rallying not once but twice to get to the bumper of the leader. A late race spin, it took him out of contention for the lead, but with enough buffer back to 3rd, he was able to hold on to 2nd with an impressive podium finish. Tyler Seville, we already talked about him, very consistent all night long, made a lot of passes, got up to P3. Nick Curling, P4, seems like he was doing some of the most battling out of anybody. It seemed like no matter where he went, there was somebody trying to overtake him or somebody for him to overtake, and he was just really in the thick of it all night long. So to come out of that in 4th, can't complain. Doug Mullins in P5 after running 2nd for the majority of the race. Steve Yenish 6th. Adam Jersky in P7. Michael Krobach 8th. Brian Yazik makes his way up to 9th before the end of the show. And Grant Brown is going to round out your top 10 in that double O.
In the 11th position here tonight, AJ Digby, who beat Jordan Harnish to the line by just about 1/10 of a second. Thomas George lost 2 spots in the final 2 or 3 laps to finish in 13th here tonight. Will Wartzler, who had been fighting a lot of damage from lap number 1 in the number 29 machine, he comes home as the last car on the lead lap in 14th. Jackson Van Valkenburg finishing in 15th. Troy Haight back behind him. Kind of a quiet night from the P&N Water Filters number 28 machine there, Troy Haight. Alan Young had a couple of moments during the race that he'd probably want to have back, but he finishes in 17th. Pete Baskins, the DMLC Racing Channel machine, in 18th. Jason Stewart in 19th. And rounding out your top 20, the first car 2 laps down, the number 3 of Michael Larch. There, Andre.
And outside of the top 20, looking a little bit further back, we've got Kevin Stone in at number 17, 21st. John Eckert, 22nd. Adam Blattel, 23rd. 24th is going to go to Mark Myers. Richard Fletcher, 25th. Corey Silva, 26th, after a disappointing fueling issue. 27th, Mark Cohn. We got Woody Mahan in 28th. 29th is going to go to Gary Reynolds. Jeff Yenish is going to round out your top 30. And we're not going to forget him. Evan Blackman, number 92, bringing it home 31st here at Sonoma.
Well, that's going to do it for your finishing order, but we still have to talk to your top 3 finishers here tonight. Let's see if we can dial up tonight's third place driver. Driver of the number 11 machine was in victory lane 1 week ago in the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown World 300 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Very different racetrack here tonight. But again, Tyler, you minimize your mistakes out there on the racetrack. You come home with the top 3. Walk us through your night, because it was pretty eventful out the front of that Arch Telecom machine.
That it was. Just hoping. I figured I was a 6th to 10th place car today, and there towards the end, I felt like Doug and Nick burnt up their stuff there on that last run battling, and it was just enough to where I was able to get around them and kind of drive away. But overall, really pleased with the third place finish. It definitely surprised me. I wasn't anticipating it.
Very, very impressive drive out of you here tonight. You started down in 8th and walking home with a podium. You'll be very happy to kind of leave this joint, but you know, you're one of those drivers that we can never really count out. We can never really get a hone on you. You've won on big tracks, you've won on small tracks, you've performed well here tonight. What goes into your preparation here in the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series to kind of show up at the racetrack and be fast week in, week out?
Yeah, I'll say every week we try to have two or three at least practice sessions, sometimes more depending on the track. And it gives us a chance to go through all kinds of different scenarios. So whether it be a fuel run to see what the tires will do. But I know with AJ, Will, and Doug, my road racing has improved like 1,000% from when we started. I used to regret going to road course races, and now depending on which road course it is, I feel like I have a shot to win. But yeah, it's a lot of practice, a lot of communication, and anything to help each other improve. At the end of the day, if we can have more than one car in the top 5 and battling for the win, that's a win for WWR.
Well, you definitely had a couple in the fight here tonight with both you and Doug Mullins up there at the front of the field. When you ran down Doug, was there any kind of team decisions to kind of let you on by, or did you two race it out there when you were battling for third?
We raced a little bit. Obviously, you try to cut your teammates some slack if you can. We were lucky that we had a big gap behind me when I got Doug, so it's not like if we battled, someone would gain on us, kind of like I did with him and Nick. But ultimately, everyone's out for themselves. I know Doug had a really good run. He certainly hasn't had the finishes that match where he's ran for the year. So if he felt like he had a chance, he was going to give everything that he could. But I know him and Hurling burnt up their stuff there towards the end.
Well, definitely going to be an interesting race a couple of weeks from now when we go to Nashville. It was originally penciled in as Bristol Dirt, but we go to Nashville Fairgrounds instead. What are your thoughts about going there? And then secondly, any shout-outs here for us?
We'll see how we unload when we start the practice. We'll take advantage of the off week and get some Rocket League in and some PUBG maybe as a team. But ultimately, I have to shout out my teammates because I wouldn't be nearly as good without them, with Will, Doug, AJ, and Richard out there. And I also have to shout out Arch Telecom for being on the car this week. And then I had a special back bumper today because June's Pride Month, so happy Pride Month to everybody.
Absolutely, that is for sure. Tyler, congratulations on coming home with a third place here tonight. We'll see you in 2 weeks here on 3 Wide TV. Best of luck at Nashville.
Thank you.
All right, so that's going to do it here for tonight's third place interview driver of the number 11 machine. Let's see if Andre can catch up with tonight's runner-up, driver of the number 2 machine, Greg Evans.
Greg Evans, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Greg, first off, I want to say I know no race car driver wants to bring it home P2, but you had a phenomenal run out there, and you were a blast to watch. I don't think there was anybody out there that was giving their car quite as much and pushing themselves as much as you were. That rally to catch up from nearly 8 seconds back to get to the back bumper of the leader at one point, that was nothing short of inspiring. I mean, you were just wheeling that thing out there. How was that car tonight, and how are you feeling after that race?
It was definitely a handful tonight. It felt like the front end had no grip. The rear end, 95% of the time, had no grip. I mean, everybody was battling the same conditions. I kind of learned something at Coda. Tried to pit a little bit earlier because it seemed like the tires equaled out so quick, and then I knew if I could get within a couple seconds of it, Avila might realize I was pretty close and try to start pushing it, and I just want to save my tires, and we made a run at it. I definitely think we had the fastest car. He went into one of those like the 4th or 5th turn, and he just checked up a lot quicker than I thought he was going to, and I had to lock up the brakes because I didn't want to turn him and win that way, and ended up spinning myself. But that's just that's part of it. Lesson learned, and glad we put on a pretty good show tonight.
Yeah, that you did. It was an amazing show. Now, you mentioned it was a conscious decision. Get on the brakes, don't take out the leader. You didn't want to win like that, and you kind of sacrificed your own night in doing so. That wheel hop set in, and at that point, there's nothing anybody can do to get that car pointed the right direction once that wheel hop starts. But is there anything you would have done different throughout this race to maybe try and change the outcome?
I really think we was a little bit too nice, I guess you could say, early on in the race. I got stuck behind a couple cars, ended up getting turned, or not really turned, but turned sideways pretty much, had to correct it, then keep going, and just, I guess trying to be too patient, too nice early on. If we could have made up a few seconds on that first run, it would have been either in front of Avila or possibly right behind him to begin that last run. But it's can't complain too much about second place, but you hate to give them away like that. But that's part of it.
That is indeed racing. Never know what's going to happen at the end of the day. But again, congratulations on second place. And before we let you go, Greg, any shout outs or thank yous you'd like to make?
Yeah, definitely got to thank Hacksaw PC, iRacing, iFlag, Maverick Concepts, Sam Maxwell Customs, Sim Racing Speed Shop, all my guys from Steel Horse Racing, and thank you guys for broadcasting, and Jim and Sam for hosting the league. Have a blast over here. So we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time, Greg, and hopefully we're talking to you again next week.
Hopefully. Thank you, guys.
And that was Greg Evans out of the booth, your runner-up finisher. Not too disappointed. I thought he might be a little bit more upset with that finish. Sometimes drivers get a little bit heated and in the heat of the moment, but he was pretty happy with that second place finish, and as he should be. A phenomenal run out of that number 2. And now, the moment we all been waiting for, it's our race winner, Johnny Avila. He's with Peter Short.
And I'm standing down here in the Holl Sheetmetal 150 Victory Lane here at Sonoma Raceway, standing alongside Johnny Avila. Johnny, what a great race for you here tonight in the number 63 machine. You got out front early. You started on the outside pole, but once you were able to get to the front, you never looked back. You did have a hard charging number 2, Greg Evans, applying a lot of pressure to you. But when he went around, it looked like clean sailing from there. Tell us
I'm just excited to go on to the next race and keep this momentum going. I've been having a lot of good finishes.
Absolutely, definitely going to be a lot of fun. Johnny, before we let you go here on 3 Wide TV, any shout outs tonight?
I want to just shout out the field. This track is really slick. Everybody was keeping it on the track for the most part. You guys up in the booth, can't wait to watch this race. And I got to thank all the league admins and all the sponsors that helped put this together. It's a fantastic league to be a part in.
Absolutely. Well, Johnny, congratulations on picking up your first American Esports Association sponsored American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series here tonight. Definitely a lot of fun to see you in the number 63 machine. A little bit of a new look on that number 63 here tonight as well. I think we expect to see that paint scheme back out there on track. Best of luck at Nashville, buddy.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, folks, that's going to do it for our post-race interviews here tonight on 3 Wide TV. We already went through tonight's finishing order. Andre, any final thoughts of the whole Sheetmetal 150 here tonight?
I just, in a way, I'm happy it's over because my heart rate can finally go down. That was such an exciting event all night long. I mean, there was battles from the front of the field to the back of the field. I mean, we saw drivers door slamming for 11th place. You don't see that at every track, and you don't see it every week. That was an absolute joy to commentate, and I'm just glad I got to be here.
Yeah, AJ Digby and Jordan Harness trying to pull off their best Ricky Craven and Kurt Busch impression right there, coming to the start-finish line. Wasn't for the win, but was for 11th position. Definitely a lot of fun here tonight, and some really great battles. This racetrack definitely knows how to put on some great battles, and we can't wait to be back next year. But I think I'm going to go find myself some California wine from the wine country here around Sonoma Raceway, and I think we're going to call it a night here on 3 Wide TV. Make sure you join us in 2 weeks. Yes, 2 weeks from tonight. Next week, we do have an off week before we go to the Nashville Fairgrounds. That is going to be a lot of fun here for the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown Nashville 169, June 16th here on 3 Wide TV. Big shout out to our friends over at Sim TV for the camera angles here tonight at the Sonoma Raceway. But until we meet again, stay safe and we shall see ya.